on a day-to-day, really it's a process of learning to understand your triggers and how you normally respond, and finding new ways of responding that work better for you.
We all know that dancers are a very self-critical bunch of people. So I'm wondering, how do we strike a good balance between self-criticism and positive self-esteem or self-love?
Yeah, so I think it really is an important balance to strike. And in terms of, I see it as a spectrum really, where on the one end we have that critical side, which is actually really about caring for yourself and the quality of the work you produce. So that's really important we hold on to that. But we do also need to balance it with a sense of pride in yourself and an acknowledgement of your strengths and what you're good at without being arrogant. But if I can hold those two in balance, yes, I've got weaknesses, but I also have strengths. It can help us to be confident in a balanced way.
Some dancers are chronically self-critical, or they have low self-esteem, and that might be related to body image or something technical. What advice can you give those dancers?
Yeah, I think when we have chronic self-critical natures, we do need to look at some of the deeper beliefs that sustain that way of thinking. But on a day-to-day, really it's a process of learning to understand your triggers and how you normally respond, and finding new ways of responding that work better for you. So learning, when do I get most critical and how can I respond differently? So I have a triple R little acronym that I use to help dancers with this. And the first R of that is just to recognize your triggers. So getting to know what sort of situations tend to cause me to get into that self-critical mindset. So is it when someone does something really good and then I start to compare myself negatively? Or maybe it's when the teacher gives me some feedback and I start to get critical. So learning what it is for you will really help you know, when am I most vulnerable, and then how can I change how I respond from there.
Right. And so with that in mind, what to do once you've recognized that you've been triggered? What next?
Yeah, so the second R is really about resourcing yourself. So usually in that moment, you feel pretty vulnerable, you might feel inadequate or like you're not good enough. And so doing something really simple in the moment that helps to resource you and helps you gather your strength and your courage back to keep going and trying some more. So it can be little things like just taking a deep breath or listening to the music that's playing or looking out the window. Often says have a sip of water or make eye contact with your friend, something that just helps to relax you and help you feel ready to then, try something new. So then the third R is to refocus on something that is important to you, what you actually want to be focusing on during this class rather than getting into this negative head spin. So what am I working on? What are my goals? How do I want to feel during this class? How do I want to be working? And come back to give yourself a cue, this is what I want to be focusing on. So first of all, we recognize the trigger situations, then we do something little to settle ourselves and then refocus.
So I think that's really excellent advice. And you have a worksheet that you provide the dancers that you work with. And I think that's wonderful because we like to do practical things as dancers. We actually like to be given some sort of homework that makes sense. So can you just talk us through that worksheet?
Yeah, so really it's just got 3 columns, and the first one is really just about, it's a way of monitoring what are the situations that tend to trigger me. So you might look through it and notice, today what happened? It was at the end of the day, or it was with this specific teacher, and you start to collect a list of what are the times that I'm most vulnerable. And then the middle column is about the signs. So what do I notice changes in me? So there's an external situation and then there's an internal shift. So that could be my heart starts to beat, or maybe I start to fidget, or maybe I, get dizzy, or everyone's a little bit different. But what is it that you notice? You start thinking a lot. What are your signs that tell you I'm getting into this negative headspace? And then the third column is just really, this is a place for you to track which strategies have I tried and which ones work for me, because everyone's a bit different. So that might be, having the sip of water, or maybe it's listening to the music, remembering someone that I love. Whatever it is, write them down, and then you've really got to know yourself well, and you're learning through every experience that you have. So instead of being a terrible situation where I got really self-critical, it actually becomes a learning experience.
Teachers often notice that a student might have low self-esteem or be very self-critical. What advice can you give teachers?
Yeah. I mean, I think for teachers, if we think about that spectrum, a dancer like this will probably already be very tuned into their weaknesses, and so it would only take a very mild constructive criticism for them to become self-critical. So for that sort of dancer, the teacher's role is really helping them move up to the other end of the spectrum, reminding them of their strengths, even just reminding them of the corrections they already know and the tools already in their belt to help them keep moving forward. So reminding them of their progress that they've made. Remember last year what you were able to do, and helping them see what they're actually capable of. And even if they're not capable of doing the step, do they know the corrections? Do they know what they should be doing that helps them have a feeling of, I can do this? If they are having ongoing struggles that get in the way of their potential, sometimes I think that's when getting some extra help can be really good. Not all dancers will need to see a psychologist or a counsellor. And as you said, they do often like to work things out themselves. So, I have online programs where they can get the tools and understanding, but work through it on their own. And sometimes that format can be really good for dancers as well, when they sort of learn to understand themselves better. So I think there's lots of different options for teachers to encourage students.